Tibia is a virtual world filled with mysteries and has been the stage for countless adventures. Among them, the Cube Quest stands out as one of the most iconic and enigmatic in the game. Its development, spanning several years, represented an unprecedented challenge, requiring intense collaboration among players to decipher a series of complex riddles. Ultimately, the cleverness of some players shone, allowing them to unravel the most intricate puzzles. This collective achievement marked not only the culmination of the quest, but also the beginning of a decline in its relevance. It's a common phenomenon. Once solved, a quest tends to lose its aura of mystery. However, as a faithful follower and researcher of Tibia's lore, I've always felt that the true meaning and implications of this quest deserve a deeper exploration. Devoting countless hours to reading and participating in the quest and its various missions, I sought to satisfy my curiosity. At first, I faced difficulties in understanding even the most basic aspects of its story, rich in new characters never before mentioned in the game's records. This complexity made me realize that I wasn't dealing with a simple quest with riddles, but rather one of the most intricately woven stories within Tibian lore. The beginning of the lore of the enigmatic Cube Quest introduces us to the Planegazers, a secret society with a deep understanding of Tibia's reality. The Planegazers, scholars and explorers of the unknown, dedicated their lives to unraveling the mysteries of an enigmatic entity known as the Planestrider, which they ultimately came to consider and understand as an abstract concept rather than a physical entity. This perspective suggests that the Planestrider is key to understanding realities that go beyond our ordinary perception, such as alternative dimensions, planes, and the true nature of time and space, thus opening an almost unexplored field of knowledge for players at that time. Within this plot, Dallas, the headmaster of the Planegazers, becomes a crucial figure. His story begins with the discovery of a mysterious chest that resists all attempts to open. Despite his desire to share these discoveries, the Council of the Planegazers decides to keep them secret, arguing that this knowledge is delicate and must be handled with caution, leading to the construction of a place called the Chamber of Knowledge, dedicated to investigate the chests, artifacts, and mainly the Planestrider. As the investigation progresses, the Planegazers discover places that have been previously visited by the Planestrider, building forges at these sites for experiments and research. Amid these efforts, Dallas discovers a mysterious artifact called the Cube, an artifact that seems to transcend the material plane, whose nature and purpose are an enigma for the Planegazers. Dallas firmly believes that if he managed to understand the origin of the Cube, he will understand the origin of the Planestrider. But this conviction is not an easy task, as he faces a major initial problem. All the cubes found are incomplete. To unravel the enigma at the heart of this story, understanding certain key concepts is essential. According to ancient tales scattered throughout the game, it is revealed that the enigmatic Planestrider has intentionally sown clues for us to decipher his identity and hidden purposes. Thus, the Planestrider inscribed cryptic messages on ancient stones using binary numbers. These messages, known as the 5 Walls of Testimony, name 5 immensely powerful entities in the world of Tibia: Zathroth, Ferumbras, Chiel, Garsharak, and Zoralurk, whom he considers as marionettes. Discovering this revelation was disconcerting, as it implies that the Planestrider has manipulated at his will some of the most powerful beings in Tibia, including deities like Zathroth. It was at this point that I realized we are not facing an ordinary story, but rather an event of monumental significance for the lore of Tibia. My suspicions gradually intensified, inevitably linking these mysteries to an enigmatic entity that has gained great relevance over time, and I asked myself, how could Variphor and the Planestrider be related? Let's start with Variphor. In essence, Variphor is an entity that dwells at the threshold between reality and non-reality. The Yalahari, in their quest for knowledge, stumbled upon Variphor. Initially unaware of its malevolent nature, the true intentions of Variphor soon became apparent as it corrupted the minds of the Yalahari, triggering a lethal confrontation that culminated in a night of massacre among this ancient and mysterious race. Since then, Variphor has emerged in various locations, disseminating information through whispers and shadows. In the gloomy valley of Roshamul, for example, he was responsible for the betrayal of the demonic princes against Zathroth, leading to a cataclysmic battle between demons loyal to Zathroth, demonic princes corrupted by Variphor and the Dreamers. Later, Variphor made his presence known in the attempted ascension of the powerful mage Ferumbras. We, as players, were deceived and manipulated to take part in this attempt, collecting the parts of the Godbreaker and delivering them to the followers of Variphor. It is worth mentioning that the Godbreaker is a weapon of unimaginable power capable of killing a god. Simultaneously, Ferumbras' ascension attempt tore the fabric of space-time, creating vortices that unleashed interdimensional invasions across the lands of Tibia. Later in Grave Danger Quest, we discover an organization known as Shiron'fal, or the Legion, composed of races forged at the dawn of the God Wars, with the ultimate purpose of vengeance and destruction of the Elder Gods. Shockingly, we find that Shiron'fal operates under the orders of Variphor. This organization has been behind numerous enigmatic events, recruiting beings, seeking powerful artifacts, and sowing chaos. Its influence extends to the cults of Tibia, where the Legion dedicates itself to recruiting and indoctrinating various creatures to serve Variphor. Among the known members of Shiron'fal are Death Priest Shargon, Iskandar the Banished, Isbasra, Zoralurk, and Ashvalor. The latter was corrupted directly by Variphor in the Battle of Roshamul, playing a crucial role in a mysterious place we will review now. In the mysterious halls of the secret library, an alarming truth is revealed. Variphor pose a colossal threat to our world. Deceived during Ferumbras' ascension, we stole the parts of the Godbreaker, which inadvertently fell into the hands of Variphor. However, its assembly requires hidden knowledge which is located and safeguarded in the sacred enclosure dedicated to Zathroth, the secret library. The library, fiercely guarded by wards and guardians, becomes our battlefield in the last library mission. Our duty is to assist Cerebrir in the fight against the invasion of Variphor's minions, who are eager to seize the secret knowledge. Upon concluding the battle, Cerebrir discovers that the battle was a distraction while an intruder overcame the seals to steal the knowledge of the Godbreaker. This revelation leads Cerebrir to conclude that only those present at the creation of the seals could possess such knowledge, leaving only one suspect, Ashvalor. Thus, Cerebrir warns us of an imminent war declared by Zathroth, where we, as players, will be summoned by this evil god to face Variphor. I never imagined that in my Tibian Odyssey, I would be called to fight alongside the god Zathroth, awakening in me a mix of intrigue and pleasant surprise. But let's return to the main thread. What does all this have to do with the Planestrider, the cube, and the previously discussed topics? We have fitted much of the puzzle, unraveling the core of our game's story. However, to our amazement, there are still secrets to be discovered in this plot. Remember the 5 walls of testimony, indicating the manipulation of 5 powerful entities of Tibia by the Planestrider. We have confirmed that Ferumbras, Zoralurk, and Zathroth were puppets in the hands of Variphor for his dark purposes. But what about Garsharik and Chell? Chell, revered almost as a deity by the Deeplings, apparently does not exist today, at least according to the information available in the game. However, an NPC known as Navigator has impersonated Chell, deceiving the Deeplings and plunging them into constant battles against the creatures of the Hive. It is important to mention that the Hive was created by a Yalahari who escaped from Yalahar upon discovering Variphor, with the purpose of countering Variphor's plans. Navigator, under the false identity of Chell, has generated chaos that interferes with the original purpose of the Hive. Moreover, this character did not arrive in the deep seas by chance, but was seduced with power and means to impersonate King Tiel. Although I admit that this part of the story could have a more detailed explanation, it's evident that the Chiel we know has been manipulated in a similar way for a specific purpose. And how does Garsharik fit into this scheme? Garsharik, known as the first dragon created, has been an enigma for years. Does he still exist? Is he the same dragon that appears in the first Dragon Quest? No, Garsharik is not that dragon. The dragon from that event is actually the son of Garsharik, as confirmed by the members of Cipsoft in the teasers of the update, so let's completely discard that belief. My exhaustive search for answers about the relationship between Garsharik and the Planestrider led me to the distant continent of Zhao. While Zhao's story is complex and detailed, I will limit myself to speaking about it in general terms. Zhao, originally governed by the lizards, at some point in its history, fell into corruption and internal disputes. The snake god, worshipped by the lizards, punished them with a plague that devastated the land. The lizards were weakened and began to lose their empire. The dragons, noticing this, decided to help their distant relatives, leading them to become the new rulers of the lizard empire. Although the dragons would also later fall prey to corruption. The snake god, seeing his people worshipping the dragons, manipulates a lizard to start a rebellion in order to ascend again. In other words, in the Wrath of the Emperor quest, we carry out missions indirectly ordered by the snake god. In this way, we use a scepter and charge it on magical crystals, which imbue it with the necessary energy for the snake god to take form and ascend again. However, the awareness of the Dragon Emperor realizes what is happening in time and explains that we were deceived since the ascension of the snake god could end in the destruction of the world due to the unleashed force. Therefore, we must go to fight the snake god, who is still in a weakened form to prevent a catastrophe. This is how the quest ends. But in the intermediary of this plot is when the mythical dragon, Garsharak, appears. I must confess that this part of the plot is quite difficult to explain if some basic concepts are not known. All this information causes a conceptual tangle that's hard to digest when heard for the first time. But let's try. Garsharak is the oldest and most powerful dragon that has ever existed. According to the lizards, the Dragon Emperor of Zhao is also the oldest and most powerful dragon that has ever existed, but apparently does not exist physically, and only his consciousness lives eternally. On the other hand, the Dragon Emperor has bound the mind of the sleeping dragon to eternal sleep, who is the only one who can grant you access to the inner sanctuary of the Emperor himself. Interestingly, the sleeping dragon has the same graphic design as Garsharak displayed in the Genesis photo. As you can see, it is a dragon of imposing size, with decorations and unique colors that distinguish it from any other dragon. Finally, when asking the sleeping dragon about his name, he says the following: "I have no name. I am a perpetual life form, and while I am not omniscient, the foundations of my memories reach further into the past than the roots of your civilization." If you haven't realized yet, this sleeping dragon is Garsharak himself, and at the same time is the Dragon Emperor of Zhao. Garsharak has bound himself to eternal sleep so that his consciousness can live forever. I can remember the moment I glimpsed this fact and how difficult it was for me to understand it or even consider it as a theory, as it seemed quite far-fetched. But then, reading ancient pages of the Tibia Forum, Cheyenne would confirm my suspicions. Cheyenne makes us see a clue that we had overlooked, where she invites us to reflect on the age of the dragon and what the dragon visualizes in his dreams. When entering the dream of the sleeping dragon, he visualizes the goddess Bastesh in all her splendor before or after Fafnir destroyed her beauty, an event that dates back to the early days of the creation of Tibia, where only one creature existed until then, Garsharak. In the same way, certain clues can be found that lead us to the same conclusion, like reading the first dragon book, where Garsharak is mentioned again as a dragon sleeping somewhere. But, well, after this shower of information, let's try to return to the Planestrider and his relationship with Garsharak. Why would the Planestrider consider Garsharak as a marionette too? Remember that it's Garsharak himself who let the snake god to try to ascend again, which, just like Ferumbras, unleashed significant energy in the land, opening interdimensional portals where we can find the place of a curious creature that possesses an interesting artifact, Yellowthax and the Ring of Ending. Now that we have a clear understanding of the reasons and events described, there is no doubt that the enigmatic Planestrider is actually Variphor. That's the reason why the Planestrider leaves these messages on purpose to be discovered, so that through exhaustive research you can unravel his origin with one goal: to know about him. You have to keep in mind that this entity, being a form of conceptual existence, feeds and grows in influence the moment it is named or taken into account. Discovering its origin is equivalent to giving it more presence in the universe, and every step you take means being complicit in its game. You're probably now wondering, if Variphor is a conceptual entity, why does the Planestrider have a physical presence? I believe that here the content creators did an incredible job in order to play a bit with our minds, but nevertheless, they left the necessary clues to understand the puzzle. As Lionette once said, the Planestrider has shown a form and was shaped by things, but it may just as well be one of many different interpretations of the concept. Just by looking at the physical appearance of the Planestrider, you can tell that it is made of different materials since it does not have a defined physical form, and this would be the way it presents itself to you. Once you visualize this, a lot of things start to make sense. This representation of Variphor in the form of a giant face can also be found in other places. Remember Roshamel, the place where Variphor had a presence? Or Gnome Deep Hub, where the Planegazers set up a base to investigate the Planestrider? Well, this last place was also visited by Variphor. The representation of those giant faces is not decorative, but rather shows the manifestation of Variphor in the material plane.